Everyone, I'm Tracy Weir from 811, and I'm here this morning with Michael McClure, who is the brand new Chief Content Officer of the Good Life team. And everyone knows Michael because he runs the Raise the Bar group on Facebook. He's the CEO of ProfessionalOne. He's also the CEO of Verified Agent. He's a busy guy, and I wanted to get together with you this morning, Michael, because I wanted to find out why the Good Life team, why Chief Content Officer. So why don't we start there and tell me why you're excited and what's going on.
Well, first of all, Tracy, thanks so much for having me on your blog. Ever since I met you, I've been a big fan of you and what you're doing and the great work that you did at Inman. And I think you're just a really bright woman, and I appreciate your friendship and also your having me on. To answer your question, it's a very long story, so I'll give you sort of I won't call it the short version, but the shorter version of that story, which is, and you just cut me off if I'm rambling on too long because I'm prone to doing that. But the shorter version of the story is that I met Christina Wise back in, I believe it was the fall of 2009 at the what was called Mardi Gras, the NAR conference in New Orleans. And I had been aware of her, and we'd communicated a little bit on Twitter primarily, but at the time, she wasn't a heavy user of Twitter, so my knowledge of her was fairly limited. And what I knew of her, I really had heard about from other sources who told me that she was really smart and bright, and the things that they were doing there at the Good Life team were gaining a lot of national, notoriety and prominence. And one of the people that I heard the most from, someone that a good mutual friend of ours, you and me, Chris Smith, who was close with Christina, and he kept saying, "Oh, you guys need to meet." And so Chris actually introduced us at something called the Power Broker Dinner, the humorously named Power Broker Dinner at the NAR conference, and we connected immediately. You know how it is, much like when I met you, Tracy. Sometimes you connect with people, and sometimes
Absolutely.
You don't. And so Christina and I connected instantly. And I invited her onto my blog talk radio show, and she came on, and I remember it very clearly because when I met her face-to-face that night in New Orleans, our conversation probably was less than 10 minutes, so it wasn't like I spent a lot of time talking with her. So that the time we spent on the radio show was the first lengthy conversation that we had. And I recall, and you can test me on this if you go back and listen to the broadcast, near the end of the show I said, quote, "I feel like running through a brick wall right now," because she had so motivated me with her vision of the industry. And basically, long story short there, is that I'd been developing my own brand, and in fact my brand, ProfessionalOne, was named one of the most creative brands of the past decade in the Swanepoel Trends Report in, I think it was 2011. So I was having some success with my own efforts. But what I quickly discovered is that Christina had taken, or I don't want to say she took my ideas, she didn't take my ideas, she was just developing the same basic ideas parallel to me. She was years ahead of me. Her experience curve, her actual execution of these ideas that we shared was so much beyond my own that it forced me to take a step back and really reassess what I was doing. So that was sort of the first part of our journey together. And then over the course of the time since then, we've sort of drifted in and out of each other's lives. I've done a number of webinars with them on their agent training company called Coffee with Christina, where I now work. And we had great success with those webinars. In fact, I recall the first one I did was their most heavily attended webinar they'd ever had, which I was very proud of that because Christina's had some really A-plus talent on that show. And so it was like every time we got together, something really good happened. And so we've been in conversation for all that time. We nearly got together back in, I guess it would have been 2011, and things just didn't quite come together. And we at the time, we agreed to disagree. But I'll never forget this because it was one of the defining moments of my relationship with Christina was, the class and maturity and objectivity that she showed me when we agreed to disagree was really unusual. Oftentimes people in situations that feel like failure. They often, they're not happy, and they kind of show you a side of their personality that isn't necessarily pleasant. And what I found with Christina was, if anything, she was even more generous and caring and loving and like really concerned about, and happy for me doing what I felt was the right thing. And I remember at the end of a 3-hour conversation we had that day, it was in San Francisco, I said to myself, and we agreed openly, but I said to myself, I know without any shadow of a doubt that we're going to get together at some point professionally, because she's just too good of a person, and she's having all this success with business, and we have the same vision. And I'd already met a bunch of her team at that point. I made multiple trips down to Austin. I got to see their operation firsthand, and it was just like every step I took brought me, that much closer.
Right.
So this time around, we sort of reconnected early this year, started talking again, and it was just like we picked right up where we left off in that last big conversation that we'd had. And what's really cool is that the role that I'm now playing, to get to the second part of your question, the role that I'm now playing is very different from the one that I was originally going to be playing in her organization. And in retrospect, she and I agree that there was a definite ceiling on how much success we were going to have with that original vision that we shared. What we're now doing is so much more exciting to me, particularly with respect to what I'm doing personally, because what I love to do personally is educate, train, create things, write blog posts, moderate groups. I like to sort of just to be a voice, and to also to just help raise the bar in real estate, which is my ultimate passion.
Right.
And so it's really cool, because what I've been working on with Christina and the rest of her team, which consists of her husband, Gary, who's an incredibly bright guy, Jack Miller, who is as smart a human as I've ever met, Kelly White, who is an amazing leader and operations person, it's really a magical situation for me, and I've never really felt this much sort of predestined to be in a place doing a certain thing. That's what I'm doing now, so I couldn't be happier about it. And I think maybe that comes through in the passion I'm sharing with you right now. But it's a great place to be, and the things that we have already planned out to execute are significant. And at this point, I'm going to guess that we'll be working nonstop for the next 2 to 3 years just to do what we already have planned.
Wow. So tell me specifically, what are you going to do as Chief Content Officer? What are your roles and responsibilities?
Well, it's a bit of a dynamic role, but the way I would answer that is, an example of that actually was just posted an hour ago. I do a lot of like screencast, ScreenFlow type videos where I teach people how to do something, and I just created my first of those for them this morning on a new little technology that Evernote incorporated into their product. But I'm going to be doing literally, I'll predict I'm going to do 1,000 of those over the next 3 or 4 years, because I like doing them. Also, I'm going to be blogging. Also, I'm going to be helping with their web marketing. You and I were chatting before we started recording this, and the short version of what you and I just discussed was Good Life Team and Coffee with Christina use a product called Infusionsoft, which is the most sophisticated sort of email/web marketing technology that I'm aware of. And Jack Miller, who is the Chief Technology Officer at Good Life Team, has spent the last couple of years really learning this. And he's just, like I already said, he's a super smart guy. He and I have been collaborating on a daily basis and ramping up that part of the business, which is a really integral part. In fact, I would call it the engine of any online marketing business is this core technology that drives it all. And so it's about email and video and other forms of content that you can embed in it. And it's cool because it allows you to spread your message as big and wide and far as possible. And we're doing that. Also, another thing I'm helping them with is they've had tremendous success with a product called iPad for Real Estate, which they brand under something called Paperless Agent. They've been doing a lot of webinars with those, and they've already sold 3,000 of that product just in 2013. I've been on a number of those webinars with Gary Wise, and it's been really exciting because, and I'm guessing that you'll have some insight into this, Tracy, it's difficult to sell things in the real estate space, even really high quality things. I've seen many very high quality products that surprisingly haven't sold well, and it's been exciting for me to be a part of what Good Life Team is doing because the products are selling well. It speaks to the quality of the products, but also that second piece, which is this Infusionsoft and all the stuff that's built around that they really have a solid understanding of. So I'm going to be helping them scale all of that so that we can, again, obviously we're a business that needs to make money. Of course, every business does. But at the core of that, we all share this vision of really wanting to make real estate a better and more professional place where agents provide better service to clients. Clients are happier, agents make more money, etc.
So let me ask you a question. So as Chief Content Officer, what that says to me is that the Good Life Team is treating itself as an audience-based business, as opposed to being one that does outbound marketing through content they're trying to draw in clients. Would you agree with that? And do you think most brokerages could stand a little bit of heavy-duty content marketing?
Well, I'm not entirely sure I understand your question, but I think I do, and so if I get off course, just rein me in. But yes, I would answer your question as yes. I mean, one thing I've learned, because I've spent the last couple of years trying to learn how to do everything that I just described that I'm now doing. And what I've learned, and I want to make clear, I'm not an expert on this, so if I mislead anybody, I apologize. But what I've learned is that you win fans and clients by giving them quality information for free. That's the start of it all. One, you have to establish credibility. You have to know what you're talking about,
sure,
of course. But beyond that, you need to give away a lot of stuff and gain the trust and respect of an audience. And then I think that they will ultimately reward you with their hard-earned dollars if you do a good enough job of creating quality products and demonstrating trust and value and respect and all those things. So I don't know if that answered your question or not, but
well, it does, and I want to just go a little deeper there. So, you know, what I hear a lot is brokers and agents saying, you know, this content, giving it away for free, I'm giving away my secrets, it takes too much time, there's not enough return, I don't know what it's going to return. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because I do think it's about the relationship these days and mixing into the conversation rather than just trying to create it on your own.
I couldn't agree with you more, and it's all about the relationship. And I haven't known you that long, Tracy, but if you were to have perfect knowledge of all the things that I've said online for the last 4 years, the number one thing I've said, I believe, and I created a really large video series that included over 30 of real estate's, in my opinion, largest personalities answering a single question. And the question was, is there ROI in social media? Mm-hmm. And I was really proud of that because of, again, the caliber of people that I was able to get involved in the project, from Stefan Swanepoel to Chris Smith to Jeff Turner to Matthew Shadbolt to, if I'd known you, you would have been in on it. I mean, Deborah Trapin, Sean Carpenter, all these people that I really respect in the space. And what you'll find over and over is the same message coming through in different phrasings, but nonetheless it was consistent, and it was this. The whole idea is to create a relationship. It's not to sell something. And I think that's where people, they think that technology and social media is a magic bullet. It's not. I mean, it is and it isn't. It is in the sense that I wouldn't know you without it.
Sure.
And there are hundreds of incredible relationships that I've been able to create through social media that I would not have any other way. As you know, because you were involved in the project, I just co-authored the Swanepoel Technology Report.
That's right.
I only know Stefan because of Twitter. I mean, it was just this long, slow relationship build that just kept growing and growing day by day, tweet by tweet. And I think that's what this is a long-winded answer, I apologize, but I'm getting to my point now, which is you develop relationships online just like you do in real life. They take time. If you don't want to invest the time in real life, you're not going to create relationships with people. Why would it be any different in marketing or on Twitter or on Facebook or anywhere else? So, and I think people are so quick to give up on it. You know, like they spend a month on Twitter and they don't have 5 closings. And they say, well, this Twitter thing sure sucks, doesn't it? I don't know. If you went to a country club and you joined and after 1 month you didn't have 5 closings, would you quit the country club? No. You'd say, I got to spend time with these people. I got to get to know them. I got to play golf with them. I got to play tennis with them. I have to have meals with them. I have to get to know them before they're going to give me their business.
Right.
Same thing.
Now, you have a personally compelling story about Twitter, and I want to just mention it because you went from nothing to tens of thousands of followers on Twitter, and you were a great big skeptic. And now, obviously, you know, that's been your proponent now, but how long did it take you to really realize the value of social media personally? Because you sort of got on when, 2009, 2010?
It was March 29th, 2009. Not that
you remember the day or anything.
Not that I'm keeping track. No, but you know, that sounds really, however that sounds corny, sounds stupid, whatever it sounds. That's how important that event was in my life, because, you know, I was just sort of living my life like most of us do. You know, in a fishbowl. I was very successful as a real estate agent, but my life had sort of reached, kind of felt like its peak. You know, like I knew all the people I was ever going to know at my age in my market, and my life was boring. I was making a very good income, leading a very, 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 very exceptionally boring life. And then, skipping the story, but I then tried Twitter, and I had been a critic of Twitter publicly before I tried it. You know, like we humans often do, we judge things before we really have a clue. And I dove into it, and the first trigger event for me was I randomly ran into Nicole Nicolay. We all know Nicole, one of the most engaging and dynamic personalities in real life, online, anywhere. And she sent me a video, and the video was her singing along to the, if you know the song, it's by a group called Living Color that no longer exists, but they did a song called Cult of Personality. And Nicole was sitting in front of her computer camera, and she was head-banging and singing along to that song for literally, I want to say, a solid 90 seconds.
Wow.
Which is forever. And at the end of it, she had a message. I don't even remember what it was. But it was then when I realized that this is what all of this allows us to do, which is she made such an impression on me in that one little video. I then reached out to her and I said, hey, I just got this video from you. I wanted to tell you how amazing I thought it was. I remember this very clearly because we spent like 2 hours on Twitter on a Saturday morning in March of 2009 or April of 2009. And you know, my vision of her was she was a superstar. I mean, this was a person who was a master of all this. And who was I? I was this guy who had just started out, and she's talking to me.
Right.
And so that was sort of the first step where I thought, this is how I can connect with people. And I've gone on to connect with all these amazing people who are not my friends, who are not my business partners. And so every time somebody says, there's no ROI in this, I just laugh because, you know, again, I would never know you. We would never be having this conversation.
True. We wouldn't know each other.
Nope.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love Twitter. It's been, you know, and to answer your question, because I forgot the question for a second. So I immediately saw that if I could do this with Nicole, I could do this with a lot of people. So I actually started specifically targeting people who I felt were like the leaders in the industry, and I just started engaging with them and saying, hey, Stefan, you know, I just would say hello to him, or I would find a piece of his content and tweet it. You know, I was paying it forward. I was doing good things for other people with no expectation of repayment. And what I found with most people is, not everybody, but I'll say 90%, if you do that enough for anyone, they will ultimately pay you back somehow.
Yep, it comes back.
Yeah, and you can't really do this in real life. I can't very well like go pick up your dry cleaning for you. I can't walk your dog. I can't wash your car without you calling the police. But I can go find a blog post on your blog and I can share it with my tribe, and I can do that over and over. And at some point you're probably going to reach out to me and say, "Hey Mike, I really appreciate that you did that for me. What can I do for you?"
Definitely.
It's a simple formula.
Definitely. I would like to point out, though, that you could come and wash my car and I would not call the police.
If you're covering my airfare, I'll be there tonight.
So let me change the subject a little bit and talk to you about the Raise the Bar group on Facebook, because we're going to put this link there, and this is sort of your chance to explain what's going on with you. So tell me about that group, where it came from, why you felt it was important, how many members there are. Give me kind of a broad picture of the group, where it came from, and then let's dive into the details. Okay,
great. The group has, I started the group in, I think it was November of 11.
Mm-hmm.
So we're now, whatever that makes us, we're now approaching 2 years-ish, whatever that, a year and 2/3 or 3/4. I started the group because I've spent many years in this industry. I've been in the real estate industry for 22 years, and I've been frustrated by it from day one. My short story that is sort of necessary to provide the right context here is I'm a CPA. I worked as a CPA for 10 years before I got into real estate, and I came from what I'll call a hyper professional environment. It was just a lot of really smart people who worked hard. There were no slackers. In 10 years in that industry, I saw one person get fired, and they were actually pretty good. It was just, relatively speaking, they weren't great. So I then moved from that industry into real estate, and I'll skip that story because it's actually embarrassing. But I just decided that I wanted to do something different with my life. I was working too many hours, and I had no life. And so I thought, if these people, and I'm sorry, I skipped a step. So while still in my career, I was transferred to a different state. And when I was transferred, I was forced to use a realtor. I ended up using 3 different agents. All 3 were incompetent. 2 were dishonest. 1 stole from me.
Oh, geez.
And I thought at the end of that horrific chain of events, if these people can earn a living with that type of conduct, imagine what I could do with my work ethic. Now, there's a lot more to selling real estate than just being disciplined and hardworking. Sure. And I quickly learned that. But that was sort of my mindset as I came in the door. And then ultimately, I became frustrated because I wasn't getting value from the big brands that I worked at as an agent. I worked at 2 of the top 5 brands. I won't name them. I'm not knocking them. It's just I got nothing out of it. They were just logos on a business card, and I thought, and plus I'd learned along the way that my clients really didn't care where I worked. It was just Mike McClure, and my cell phone number was all they needed to know. And it was interesting because I started my own company 10 years ago, and 3, 4, 5 years into that experience, I still had clients who didn't even know I had my own company because all they knew was Mike McClure.
Right, they just knew you.
Yeah. And so, in fact, I recall a couple times where somebody would say, "Hey, I never really looked at your business card. When did you move to this new company?" And I said, "Well, it's my company, and I started it 6 years ago." And they're like, "Oh, I didn't know." And I kept running into variations of that story, which just confirmed what NAR's own stats show, which I'm sure you know the stat. But when it comes to reasons why people choose agents, the specific affiliation with a brand matters 3% of the time.
Yeah, it's kind of a shocking number that 97% of consumers just don't care.
Yeah, and there are actually, I want to be careful here because I actually had this conversation in the group recently, and some very smart people made some observations that I actually hadn't considered before. So that stat might not be as clean as it sounds, but even if it's off by, 100% or 200%, you're still looking at what? It matters 6% of the time or 9% of the time. It's still a shockingly low number, and in my opinion, that speaks to a whole host of things that are wrong with this industry.
Sure.
But so that, getting back to answering your question, so that was what I experienced. That's how I came into the industry. I got involved in local association activities, specifically in something called grievance committee and professional standards, because I was interested in the lack of enforcement I was feeling. There were some really, really bad people in my market who were earning million-dollar incomes every year by flaunting and breaking every rule under the sun, and I couldn't imagine how they could get away with it so openly and so brazenly. So I spent the next 5 years discovering why. And the short version of that is the Code of Ethics is a weak document that is not enforced. Most agents don't believe in it, so they don't even bother filing charges because in most places the penalties are so minor. It'd be like this. I'm going to break into your house and steal everything you own, and if I get caught, I have to spend 3 hours in a class. Do you think I'm going to break into your house?
Probably.
I'm gonna. And, and you just need a couple people in a market, and there are a couple of these people in my market. They're still going strong 20 years later. They've been doing this for 20 years.
Right.
Unabated. And so I started the Raise the Bar group because I really wanted to have conversations around the topics that I just shared with you, around why is it like this? Is it like this in your market? What can we do to change it? Is there something wrong with the industry? Is NAR doing a good job? Is NAR doing a terrible job? Is it the state's fault? Is it brokers' fault? On and on. And these are all issues that I have real passion for because, again, I believe that, you live in San Francisco. I can only imagine how expensive your home is. I can tell you this. I live in Metro Detroit, which is nothing like San Francisco, but my home costs a lot of money. It's my biggest asset. And I don't know, call me crazy, but I think the person that represents me when I buy or sell my most valuable asset, maybe they should be good at what they do. Absolutely. And maybe there should be some rules and regulations surrounding who these people are. And there just aren't. And so all of that is what caused me to start that group. And I'll tell you this, I'm really proud of this. This is the thing I'm most proud of, is that lots of Facebook groups get started and people add literally 1,000 people in one day because you can do that. I didn't do that. I started the group honestly, and it grew organically. I think I started with maybe 20 people who were close friends of mine. But from there, it has grown entirely organically, and it keeps growing steadily. And I love that because it says that my hopes are not entirely in vain, and that there are people out there who care about these issues. And believe me, there are. And I'm just glad because we have these great conversations every day. And in fact, let me share one quick story. Last night, this happened in the group where a new person in the group was breaking a rule from NAR, and also it was a Facebook Terms of Service violation. And somebody pointed it out to him inside the group, and we had this 100-comment conversation, at the end of which this really smart guy did the right thing, changed something, and suddenly became in compliance with NAR's rules and with Facebook's Terms of Service. And there was this big, I even posted in the group and wrote, "Group hug, I'm filling everybody's wine glass." Because it was just a cool moment, and it was a real-life effect caused by the existence of that group. Was that a tiny example? Absolutely. But a real example nonetheless, and that's the kind of thing that we're hoping to do with the group, is to keep having conversations that cause people to do the right things. So
how many members are in the group now?
I think we just crossed 3,300 yesterday.
Wow. And is it pretty geographically dispersed? Is it all over the country? Does it tend to be in major markets? Where are the people coming from?
It's incredibly diverse. In fact, I would say there's no real concentration that I can discern. We have, I can think of people who were from small town Alabama to middle of nowhere Alberta to Australia to, we got people all over the place in that group, and what that's like on Facebook is that all are welcome. And that's another thing about this that I love is the diversity of opinions. One thing I've learned, and even as an industry veteran, I didn't really know this until I started the group, is the inconsistency among local customs, rules, regulations, and protocols from market to market is jaw-dropping. It's like we're not even in the same industry in many examples. So it's been I thought I knew the industry until I started the group, and then I realized that, oh my gosh, my knowledge level was probably 10% of what I thought it was.
Right, right. Now, I come into the group and you're always there. I mean, I don't know that I've ever been there when you have not just literally posted a comment 5 minutes before, whether it's at 10 at night or 6 in the morning or 3 in the morning or whenever I visit that group, you're always there. So the question is how are you going to raise the bar and maintain the quality of the group and be its gatekeeper with this big new role of the Good Life team?
I always like to answer questions honestly, no matter how it makes me look. And the honest answer to that is I really don't know, because obviously I've accepted a role with real responsibilities, with significant responsibilities that are causing me to work. It's more than a full-time job, and so I'm going to have to figure that out on the fly. And what I've done so far with it is we start at Good Life Team. We start every day with something with a Google Plus Hangout, actually, like we're doing. It happens at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central Time, where they're located in Texas. So what I'm trying to do is have some engagement within the group before that.
Right.
Then I don't want to say that I walk away entirely, because I can't. But I turn my focus largely away from the group until I've done a comfortable amount of work for my employer, which is a lot. And then I'll circle back at, say, 7 or 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and then often stay on it until midnight or ish or 1 a.m. or whatever it is. So that's probably what's going to happen with it going forward, because it's too important to me to not maintain. It's such a big part of my life that I can't not do it. But it will be a balancing act, and at times there will be challenges. And in fact, I was in Texas all last week, and I was hardly on it at all because it just wasn't possible. I mean, there's just so much going on that I have to take care of that I just wasn't able. So it's going to be a balancing act.
Sure, but it's going to go on. The group is not going anywhere.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And in fact, that was part of my negotiations with Christina when I accepted this role. Was we had very specific conversations about my being able to continue on doing very specific things that I'm doing that are really important to me. And she's just a great leader and a great person. And her whole approach is, I'm trying to think of a good analogy for it. I don't really have one, but it's sort of like the happy employee produces more. That's her basic philosophy. So her answers were, sure, you can do that. Absolutely, you can do that. Without question. Keep doing that. And so, again, that made the decision even easier when you're dealing with somebody like that.
Sure. Now, let me ask you about a couple of other businesses you're involved in. Verified Agent, what's going to happen with that?
It just continues on exactly as it is. I mean, that was always intended to be, clearly, again, it's a business that's designed to make money. But I never believed that would be successful enough at that price point that we have it at that I could live on it. So really it was more about putting I don't want to say my money where my mouth is, but I wanted to show that I was really legitimately serious about raising the bar, and this was my attempt to do that in terms of allowing people who meet qualifications that most would agree evidence some level of real professionalism to leverage that to hopefully win more business and create real differentiation for themselves. So that's going to continue on exactly as it is. And I've had to fluctuate in terms of my focus on that. Again, I'm just being honest, but I've never ever stopped believing that would ultimately manifest itself in the fashion that I thought it would from the start, which is to become sort of like the CPA designation of the real estate industry.
Right.
That was another specific conversation that I had with Christina, in which she said, absolutely, keep doing that. It was funny because back in the summer of 2011, when the verified agent idea was just reaching fruition before we started building it, I was in Chicago at a conference, and I spent an evening with Christina and her husband Gary, and she was sort of like one of the first people that I really respected that I shared the idea with. And at the time we were just we had no specific plans to get together. We were just friends having a drink. In fact, it was a $20 per glass drink on top of Trump Tower, which if you ever want to blow $100 on one round of drinks, Trump Tower, Chicago. Yeah. But so I recall the conversation very clearly because she said, I think it's a great idea. I think it'd really help the industry. Absolutely go do it. So I did. So we're going to be developing that. And in fact, that's something that she's going to be she and Good Life team are ultimately going to be more involved in. But right now we have other more pressing priorities. But we still are hoping that people will be attracted to it. And a part of this, too, is this was never about a hard sell. This was always about, for people who saw it for what it was, who wanted to leverage it. And I really do believe it's going to have a lot more success ultimately once we're able to promote it a little bit more, which I've not really been doing. Right.
Now tell me what's going to happen with ProfessionalOne.
ProfessionalOne is, it's just an independent brokerage located in suburban Detroit. In fact, it's interesting. We're having our best year in our history this year.
Wow.
And it continues to roll. In fact, I'm very proud of it because most people don't have a clue about what Metro Detroit is like. But before the real estate crash, there's a county that I'm on the border of called Oakland County that before the crash was the second wealthiest county in America.
Really?
That blows most people's minds. They think of Detroit and they think of nothing like that. So I say that only because there's a lot of expensive real estate in my market. And for, I think it was 3 straight years, my very small company sold more $1 million plus homes than any other company in our market with a very small number of agents. And so that's going to continue on. I have, the business is now 10 years old. It's on, I don't want to say it's entirely on autopilot, but it kind of is. It doesn't require a lot of my time and focus because I have quality agents who know what they're doing. I've weeded out the ones who didn't because what I've learned is most people watching this will roll their eyes now and say, wow, it took you that long to figure it out. But it's like the 90-10 or 80-20 rule. In real estate, it's more like 90-10. 10% of your agents make 90% of your income. And the rest of them really are just, this is going to sound harsh, but they're just net negatives on the business. They don't produce enough to justify their involvement. They tend to do deals not as proficiently as those who are really in it, doing it every day. Right. Even smart, well-intentioned people. This is an experience-based business. You have to really know what you're doing, and without street-level transactions under your belt, it's really hard to do the job well. So where I stand now with my business is the agents I have left are experienced quality agents who require very little maintenance from me.
That's great.
It is.
So ultimately, are you going to move to Austin?
Ultimately, I believe so. Right now, we're just trying to figure out the timing because I've got to make sure that the brokerage locally is taken care of because, again, I want this to survive forever. We have too big of a past client base to let that atrophy, and we built a brand which really is known in my market, and I can't I've given a decade of my life to build that, and it's as close as I'm ever going to come to having a child, quite frankly, and I can't let the child not be well cared for. So again, that was a place where Christina was amazingly understanding and just said, don't worry about it, figure that out. Make sure you take care of your brokerage, and when we get to the place where you've done that, we'll figure out what to do next. But long term, and Austin, I'm sure you've been, is an amazing place.
Yes.
The tech scene, it's sort of like Silicon Valley South, and the energy, the business expansion that you can feel there, the local economy, it's really a unique vibe that I didn't realize was as powerful as it is until I got down there, and I've now gone down. I think I've been down there for 5 separate week-long trips, so I'm starting to really understand it, and it's a cool place, very cool place.
It's a very cool place. So I want to wrap up by asking you this final big question, Michael. If you could say one thing to everybody who's like, wow, he's joined the Good Life team, what's going on? What would you say is the most exciting thing about what you're going to do next?
Well, this is going to sound really narrow and selfish, but it's sort of like I'm finally able to do the things that I would do for free anyway. Because, I've been doing all the things that I've been doing for the last few years online. I've been doing, nobody's been compensating me. I've just been doing it because it's what I love to do. It's like I can't not do it. I get up and I create videos and I write blog posts and I moderate groups because I just feel like it's what I'm born to do.
Sure.
I don't know how well I do it. All I know is I want to do it. And so what's cool about this opportunity is, and again, this was going back to the conversation I had with Christina when I accepted the job, I said, what are you not going to let me do? What are you going to prevent me from doing that I'm currently doing? And she said, absolutely nothing. I want you to come and do for us exactly what you've been doing for you. And, and we'll pay you to do that. So, and so far, she has honored that 100%. We've had no disagreements. She hasn't even commented. She hasn't even, she just lets me be. And I'm the kind of person that when you treat me like that, like I'm going to end the call with what I started. It makes me want to run through a brick wall for them. Because it's like, how cool is that? How awesome is that? To give people the freedom to be who they are and to do what they want to do. And so for me, that's it. It's that I'm able to play the exact role that I want to play, and I don't have to do any of the stuff that I don't want to do, which I've had to do in some other situations, where I just kind of had to.
Right.
One nice thing about Good Life Team is that they understand that, to use a very poor analogy, what sports do you like?
I actually like hockey.
Okay, so we'll go with hockey. So can you imagine fielding a hockey squad without a goalie?
No.
Or without a center?
Right.
Or with one defenseman? And so one thing I really appreciate about the way that Good Life Team runs their business is that they understand that there are certain fundamentals you cannot overlook, which are you need to have the right roles filled with the right players.
Sure.
And I'll contrast that with, I'll pick on myself now. I don't know if you've ever been involved in a startup situation. My guess is that you have.
Yes.
And there's a very strong temptation to bootstrap everything because you don't have money, and the one thing you do have is time. So it's like I can play goalie, and I can play forward, and I can play defense because I can work that many hours.
Right.
But what you find, or what I definitely found, is that no matter how talented you are, you're not great at everything, even if you think you are.
Right.
And so Christina understands that, so she's got the right people in the right places, and she's willing to compensate people to do that because she realizes there's just not an alternative. And she's had enough success, with her businesses, her various business interests, that she can do that. So that was another thing that really attracted me to the situation was I had lived the other philosophy, and I know it doesn't work.
Yeah, well, you can't be everything to everyone, and if you're trying to play all the roles yourself and bootstrap, you end up compromising the actual product. And
you also wreck your own life because you become a workaholic and you burn out, and you eventually lose some of your passion, maybe even all of your passion for whatever you're doing. And it's like it's a noble philosophy, but it just doesn't work long term. And I think that what's great for me about this opportunity is that I have the benefit of knowing that because I tried it. And so instead of somebody just saying, hey, Mike, don't do that, I did it, and it just didn't work. So this is great for me because I'm now in a place where people get that.
Well, I am so excited for you, Michael. I think it's a fantastic fit, and I'm excited for you to go and conquer the world. And I have to say, on a personal note, congratulations. I think it's just such a great fit for you.
Well, I'm humbled by your kind words, Tracy, and I really feel very fortunate and very blessed to be here. And it's the kind of thing where you go through periods in your life where at a certain age you wonder, am I ever going to end up in a situation that truly works and makes me happy, as opposed to just doing it to make a buck, or it's just the best I had available at the time sort of philosophy. And this is the first time I've been somewhere where it really feels like too good to be true. And I know I'm still very much in the honeymoon phase. I get that. But I've had enough experience with these people. Again, it goes back, wherever it was, 4 years of dealing with them pretty consistently. So I think I know what I'm in for, and I'm very excited. And again, I just appreciate your kind words. It means a lot coming from you.
Well, thanks. I'm looking forward to getting this online so people can share in the conversation. And
well, again, thank you for the opportunity, Tracy. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.